recently I saw a clip on the internet where they were debating um, if you have a paper clip, at what point did that metal become the paper clip? And then if you unravel the paper clip, is it still a paper clip? We're going to expand upon this and explore it a little bit in today's episode.
I'm Jupe, that's MP. Welcome to another episode of ByteSized Talks. What the fuck is this guy talking about? Let's go.
All right, so this argument's a little bit abstract.
Very abstract.
Now, let's talk about what the process, general process, what it takes to make a paper clip, right?
Yeah.
You need the metal, right? Before you can actually call, hey, I need some metal that's in a certain particular gauge of wire.
Yeah.
Said metal place needs to go and get ore, right? So at some point, some miners need to sit there, take it out of the mountainside, right? Smelt it down. It has to go through a smelt, right? Has to get poured.
Did you say miners?
Yeah, like pickaxe, not like little kids.
I was like, what the fuck? This got political real quick.
Yeah, so they have to they get the ore smelted down in the metal, right? At that point you can metal's malleable, it's ductile, you can shape it into whatever you want. At a certain point it's going to be made into some sort of a wire, right? Into a reel. At what point it would go to like the paper clip making facility to where it would be fed through a bending system, and then cut.
Yeah,
presumably, right? So we'll do just the front end at this point. At what point was it just no longer uh, a piece of metal? At what point does it become a paper clip?
So my instinctual argument to that would be, once it's able to hold the paper, it's a paper clip.
Okay, so even if a paper clip buying company buys said paper clip material,
yeah,
it's not a paper clip.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, once it's shaped, once it's holding a paper, it can actually be a paper clip.
Okay. So now you have said paper clip, and it is, in fact, a paper clip.
Mm-hmm.
Right? What if you unravel it to where it's not a great paper clip, but can still technically hold two pieces of paper together?
I would still consider that a paper clip.
Okay. You unravel it a little bit more, and now it's just not even a fully straight line. You can still see the bends in it that it would you could easily kind of follow it back to get it back to a paper clip, but it doesn't hold any paper at this point.
At that point, it's a useless paper clip.
But it's still a paper clip.
I mean, technically it was a paper clip, so I would still consider it a paper clip, yeah.
Okay. You get the wire now. You're able to make it completely straight again. Right?
Yeah.
There's no evidence that it was a paper clip. Besides, someone said, "Hey, this used to be a paper clip. Is it still a paper clip?"
I guess at that point you would be like, "Oh, it's a piece of wire." Yeah.
Okay, so it lost its paper clipness.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, I guess at that point you can start bringing it into like, oh, well, a paper. When does it stop being a paper? Even if you rip it into pieces, you can still write on it. It still functions like a paper, just because it's a different size. Yeah.
Right, but at a certain point, like now you start ripping it up smaller and smaller. It doesn't become a useful piece of paper.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And with this paper clip, now again, let's say it's completely. I'm going to throw something a little bit out there. You might need to pull up a supplemental video to put on the side of this. You flatten the wire; it's completely flat again. However, this was a special paper clip made of a material called nitinol, or nitai for short,
Yeah.
which is a nickel titanium alloy that has shape memory. Upon heating it, it can fold back into a paper clip.
Yeah, but so even if you had a wire that wasn't made of nitinol, you could still fold it into a paper clip regardless. Doesn't matter the material.
Yeah, yeah, but so it's not about making it into the paperclip. But once you have a nitinol paperclip that was formed
Hmm.
in the conditions and the shape memory was locked into a paperclip, you could fold that into a star, let's say,
Yeah.
right? However, upon reheating it, right, warming it back up, putting it in a warm thing of water, it will return to its paperclip form.
Yeah.
So the paper clippiness has never truly left it.
I guess now we're getting into the weeds of the material. Um, it's a weird one. I would still, even if it's a fucked up paperclip, I would still consider it a paperclip just because at some point it was a paperclip. Um,
Okay.
it's a weird one.
So we'll take it a little bit weirder. Let's say you take said paper, you have a bunch of straightened out paper clips,
Uh-huh.
right? Decide to recycle them. They get made into staples now. So
Oh
it's still
god.
doing the job of binding papers together, right?
Yeah.
Is it a paper clip or is it now a staple?
It has now been shaped into a staple. God, I don't know what you're on, but
But right, but like there's
yeah.
at a certain point, something stops becoming what it was, or stops being what it was,
Yeah.
and takes on this new thing.
I guess your question is at what point what's the threshold for it to stop being that thing, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. For example, for a 3D printer, um the
it's a good
plastic,
argument.
yeah, the plastic is just a wire, or not a wire, whatever you want to
Filament.
call it, filament, yeah. And once you can shape it into a, let's say, a vise, at that point the plastic becomes a vise instead of just filament. So
Yeah,
at what point
but
did it transition into that?
yeah, but you take it a step before it becomes the filament. There's people who make these little machines that will strip down a plastic bottle
Hmm.
to make the filament that will become that vice. So
Yeah.
is it now a plastic bottle that is now a vice?
Yeah, it's true. Because yeah, with the you can turn any sort of plastic into anything you want at that point. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, it's just
You know, or is it a plastic bottle that becomes a filament that you then make a plastic bottle from? Like, is it the first plastic bottle or is it now this new plastic bottle?
oh my
Right.
god.
Because the whole thing is that the it being able to revert back. Because like I think we'd all say a butterfly is different from a caterpillar,
Even though, yeah, the caterpillar turns into a butterfly. Yeah.
right? Now, is the cat is it no? It's still a caterpillar with wings. No, I can see that now that we're having this argument. I can see how this could go down some very political scope.
Yeah.
That'd be something we're not going to touch here, but that's for us
Uh,
to debate. We'll stick to paper clips and metal
yeah,
binding
we should. We don't
materials.
wanna get canceled
Yeah,
this early on, way.
yeah.
So Um, so yeah, paperclip. Yeah, I could see it's difficult to tell when it transitions, or at what point does it does it become a what do you call those little rings for the keychains, the
I know.
key
Yeah, I
holder?
know what you're talking about.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
if you shape it into a ring, like does it become a
is it?
key holder?
Yeah. Now I think it's also it's in the perspective of who's handling it, right?
Yeah,
But I'm turning paper clips and making them into rings, and now I give you a ring that's made out of paper clips.
yeah.
To you, it's just a ring now.
It's gonna be a sad fiance right there.
um, to the person receiving it, it's like, oh, hey, I got this little niche ring thing,
Yeah,
right? But for somebody who has maybe a surplus of paper clips, like, oh, hey, I have this unused resource,
yeah,
and I'm turning it into something else. Um, so I don't. I think there's maybe an exercise in perspective, right? Like,
yeah,
and seeing how this goes through. And this kind of stems from I forget the name of the philosophical like argument or debate, but there's two trains of thoughts. We have some time we can expand upon this. and I don't think you've gone through this exercise, so we'll see what your initial condition is, and then I'll try to throw devil's advocacy at you, see which way you go.
Okay.
But there's two general trains of thought as far as information. Okay, there's one train of thought that when you were born with the natural knowledge of the world,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's a fundamental, and it's there. You know mathematics, you know science. It's just a matter of remembering it.
Okay.
Okay. The other model is that you know absolutely nothing. You're completely a blank state with nothing there,
Okay.
and you have the capacity to absorb at that point.
I would think it would be the second one. Just blank
Okay.
slate, and then you start learning.
So why is it that like we are born with some hardwired like reflexes that are there?
Well, what do you mean reflexes? Expand upon that.
There's certain things like if you take a baby and you like brush their palm, like they're naturally going to want to grasp, right? Um,
But
there's
at that point, it's not. I'm not a biologist. I would say it's
um,
more muscle memory than anything.
but muscle memory, that's because you built the muscle, it's there, right?
Yeah.
Um, but like think about it, if you had to learn everything, like and I think it's an argument after you've gone through it a couple times.
Yeah.
You find yourself in the middle of both of them, and it's probably one of those things. It's probably not A or B. It's somewhere,
In between.
in between. But I think everybody naturally latches onto one or the other.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
Uh, and I'm not doing the great job that like my professor did because he had a classroom. Like, all right, where are the people who you're born with everything side,
Yeah.
and what about the people that you're born with nothing and you're a complete blank slate? Like, because think about it, if you're a blank slate, then uh, and we all have the capacity to learn everything. Why is it that some people learn so much better, so much more than the other people who are in the same class?
Yeah. Well, it probably has to do a lot with nurture and how they were brought up. Uh,
Right? But like even within the same household, right? It could be quite different.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah, that's true. I think that's still part of nurture simply because one person's experience is not going to be the same, or it's not going to shape the other person the same way. So, for example, you and I can go through the same traumatic experience, but maybe you take it more lighthearted and you'll move on from it easier. But for me, maybe I'll be stuck in depression and be thinking about it all the time. So I think it really depends on the person.
Now, the argument I've heard for like the people who retain or you're born with everything is that some people are just better at unlocking that information than
We're
others.
getting real spiritual here.
But like think about it. Have you there's some topics,
Mhm.
right, that when you learn it, you're like, shit, that makes complete sense
Mhm.
on so many levels.
Yeah.
Right? Like you learn something and like you learn this one little fact, and you're like, oh crap.
Mhm.
That just changed my perception of everything moving forward.
Yeah.
Right? Is it possible for you to really have gone through that many things that quickly? Or was it that like, oh hey, I remembered this stuff now and I see how it impacts all these other lines like going backwards?
Yeah. I guess has to do a lot with how the person's brain is wired. For example, for me, electricity that shit's fucking wild. But for some people, it's just common sense. It's like, oh, okay. So I think it has to do a lot with how a person's brain is wired. Uh, we're no psychologists, so we don't know what the fuck how that works. But yeah, I think that's what it is.
Yeah, it's a weird one, and, like, and again, if you guys take like an intro to psych class at some point, you'll probably go through this um, discussion. But to me, it's a fun one because at some point, I do think like yeah, we are born with some innate knowledge,
Yeah,
right? Like typically, most people like you don't need to know that's a spider. I'm scared. I'm afraid. I should be afraid of that thing,
yeah.
right?
It's
Like,
just hardwired in our brains. Or breathing, breathing alone is just something you,
but that's something we don't have to learn
yeah,
necessarily,
something you
right?
just come out and you start doing, and that's it.
Yeah. Shivering, right? Those are oh, I'm cold. My body knows to shiver
Yeah,
to create heat. Like, um, these are things that people like nobody tells you to do. Oh, hey Julian, you're cold. You look like you're cold. Why don't you start, shivering? Like,
Just shake.
but that's something. Yeah, that's something people are just born with. So it's like that's just like okay, well, are we born with everything, or do you have to learn everything? Because nobody taught you how to shiver.
Yeah. So stupid. Yeah, even
Uh,
fight or flight mode. We get it naturally in certain situations where we're very stressed and we get in that fight or flight mode. And nowadays it's a little more different because that fight or flight mode can be triggered simply by talking to your boss and then
yeah,
stuff like that. And it's something that we've evolved with. We weren't taught that, but we just evolved with it.
yeah. So Julian, in the sake of this argument, were you always an engineer, or what point did you? What point did you become the engineer?
I was always an engineer, not a very good one, but I was always taking things apart, putting them back together. My parents weren't too happy about that.
Is that why your dad left?
He left way before that. It wasn't even born yet. He's already.
Your dad, was I a dad before, or was I never a dad?
In his mind, he never was a dad. God, I'm glad they don't
Uh,
watch these.
yeah. uh, so I don't know. Let us know what you guys think. Like, where do you stand on the paperclip debate?
Yeah.
Uh, I think it's one of those things. It's a matter of perspective. Once you have something and you look at the end, what you tend to do with it, that's its reality. At that point, I think we have a say what things become, what we become, what we do. There's no like pre defined destiny for everything.
Yeah. Once we go into Destiny, that's a weird one too.
Yeah.
Topic for another time. All right, everybody. Thanks for watching so far. I know this was a mind fuck, but like and subscribe to the video and take care, everybody.
Take it easy.